You know that feeling when you see someone who used to be larger than life, and suddenly you realize they're just human like the rest of us? That's exactly what happened when the world saw Jean-Claude Van Damme recently. The man who could kick higher than your ceiling, split between two moving trucks, and take down bad guys without breaking a sweat is now 64 years old. And what he's going through right now will absolutely break your heart. But before we get into that, let me take you back to where it all began, because you need to understand just how far this man has come, and how hard he's fallen, and somehow, how beautifully he's picked himself back up again. Picture this. It's the late 1980s, and a young Belgian kid with big dreams and even bigger muscles walks into Hollywood with barely any money in his pocket. Jean-Claude Van Damme, or JCVD as his fans lovingly call him, didn't speak perfect English. He didn't have connections. He didn't have a famous last name. What he had was determination that burned hotter than the California sun, and a body that looked like it was carved from stone. He slept in his car. He worked odd jobs. He did whatever it took to survive while chasing a dream that seemed impossible to everyone except him. And then came Bloodsport in 1988. That movie changed everything. Suddenly, this unknown Belgian martial artist became a household name. Kids everywhere want to be like him. They practice his moves in their backyards. They quoted his lines. They dreamed of doing the splits like he did. Movie after movie followed. Kickboxer, Lionheart, Universal Soldier, Time Cop, Sudden Death. The list goes on and on. At his peak, Jean-Claude Van Damme was one of the biggest action stars on the planet. He was making millions of dollars. He was traveling the world. He had everything a person could want, or so it seemed from the outside. But here's what most people didn't know back then. Behind all those muscles and those incredible fight scenes and that million-dollar smile, Jean-Claude was fighting battles that no camera could capture. He was struggling with something that would nearly destroy him. Something that would take away his career, his money, his relationships, and almost his life. We're talking about addiction. Not just to one thing, but to multiple substances that gripped him so tightly he couldn't break free no matter how hard he tried. Jean-Claude has been incredibly honest about this in recent years, and it takes real courage to admit your darkest moments to the world. He's talked openly about how he got addicted to cocaine during the height of his fame. Can you imagine that? Here's a guy who millions of people looked up to, who seemed to have it all together, and inside, he was crumbling. He was taking drugs just to get through the day, just to feel normal, just to deal with the pressure and the stress and the constant demand to be perfect, to be the action hero everyone expected him to be. The addiction didn't just affect his health. It destroyed his marriages. Jean-Claude has been married 5 times. 5 times. And he'll be the first to tell you that most of those marriages fell apart because of his own behavior, because of his addictions, because he wasn't the man he should have been. He's talked about cheating, about lying, about being so consumed by his demons that he pushed away everyone who loved him. That's the thing about addiction. It doesn't just hurt you. It hurts everyone around you. Your family, your friends, your children. Everyone suffers. And speaking of children, this is where the story gets even more emotional. Jean-Claude has 3 kids, and for years during his darkest period, he wasn't the father they deserved. He's admitted this with tears in his eyes during interviews. He missed important moments. He wasn't there when they needed him. He was too busy fighting his own battles, too lost in his addiction to show up for the people who mattered most. Imagine being his child, watching your father who's this big, tough action hero on screen, but at home he's falling apart. That kind of pain doesn't just go away. His career took a massive hit too. By the late 90s and early 2000s, the big movie offers stopped coming. The studios didn't want to take a risk on someone who was unreliable, who might not show up to set, who was dealing with personal problems that made him difficult to work with. Jean-Claude went from being a top-tier action star to doing straight-to-video movies that most people never even heard of. His bank account, which once had millions, started drying up. He made bad business decisions. He spent money recklessly. He trusted the wrong people. Before he knew it, the fortune he had built was gone. There was a moment, and Jean-Claude has talked about this, where he seriously considered ending his life. He felt like he had lost everything. His career was in shambles. His relationships were destroyed. He was broke. He was addicted. He looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the person staring back at him. The man who once did those incredible splits, who could kick and punch and move like a dancer and a fighter combined, now felt weak and worthless. He wondered if the world would be better off without him. But something happened. Something clicked inside him. Maybe it was thinking about his children. Maybe it was a tiny spark of that old determination that got him to Hollywood in the first place. Maybe it was just pure survival instinct. Whatever it was, Jean-Claude made a decision. He decided to fight, not against bad guys in a movie, but against his own demons. He decided to get help. Getting sober wasn't easy. It never is. Jean-Claude went to rehab. He worked with therapists. He faced all the pain and shame and guilt he'd been running from for years. He had to look at himself honestly, admit all his mistakes, and figure out how to become a better person. This wasn't something he could do with a roundhouse kick or a dramatic fight scene. This required real courage, the kind that doesn't look impressive on camera, but changes your life forever. Slowly, day by day, Jean-Claude started rebuilding. He reconnected with his children. He apologized for not being there. He worked on being the father they deserved, even though he couldn't get back the time he had lost. He's talked about how painful that was, knowing he had missed so much of their lives, but also knowing that the only thing he could do was be better moving forward. His kids, incredibly, gave him another chance. They forgave him. They let him back into their lives. And that forgiveness became one of the driving forces in his recovery. He also started working on his career again, but differently this time. He wasn't chasing the same fame and fortune. He was doing projects that meant something to him. In 2012, he did a commercial for Volvo that became one of the most watched ads in history. You've probably seen it. He does his famous split between two reversing trucks, while Enya's Only Time plays in the background. It's beautiful and emotional and powerful. That commercial showed the world that Jean-Claude still had it, but more importantly, it showed that he had come back from the darkness. He started getting interesting movie roles again. Not always the lead, but memorable parts that showed his range as an actor. He did a movie called JCVD in 2008, where he basically played himself a washed-up action star. It was heartbreaking and real, and showed that he could actually act, not just fight. He appeared in the Expendables movies alongside other action legends. He kept working, kept showing up, kept proving that he wasn't done yet. But here's where we get to present day, and why this story will make you cry if you really let it sink in. Jean-Claude Van Damme is now 64 years old. His body, which he pushed to incredible limits for decades, is paying the price. He's had multiple surgeries. His knees are damaged from all those high kicks. His back hurts from all those stunts. He moves differently now, slower, more carefully. The man who could do a full split at the drop of a hat now has to think about every movement. In recent interviews, you can see the age in his face, the wear and tear of life lived at full intensity. But you can also see something else. You can see peace. You can see wisdom. You can see a man who has been to hell and back and came out the other side with his soul intact. Jean-Claude talks about his past without making excuses. He owns his mistakes. He talks about the importance of family, of sobriety, of being real with yourself and others. He's become an inspiration not because he's a tough action hero, but because he's a real human being who survived his worst moments. He's also become an advocate for mental health and addiction recovery. He talks openly about his struggles because he knows that somewhere out there, someone is going through the same thing. Someone feels hopeless. Someone thinks they're too far gone to come back. And Jean-Claude wants them to know that it's never too late, that you can always turn your life around, that falling down doesn't define you, but getting back up does. His relationship with his children has healed significantly. He's a grandfather now. Can you imagine that? Jean-Claude Van Damme, the muscles from Brussels, playing with his grandkids. He's talked about how being a grandfather has given him a second chance to experience the joy of watching children grow up, the joy he partially missed with his own kids. He's present now. He shows up. He's there for family dinners and birthday parties, and all the little moments that make up a life. He still works out, but differently now. He listens to his body. He practices meditation and yoga. He focuses on being healthy rather than looking like an action hero. He's accepted that he's getting older, and that's okay. He doesn't have to be 25 anymore. He doesn't have to do all those crazy stunts. He can just be Jean-Claude, a man who has lived an incredible life full of amazing highs and devastating lows. Recently, videos and photos of Jean-Claude have gone viral on social media, and the comments are always the same. People expressing shock at how he's aged. People feeling sad that their childhood hero looks older. But mixed in with those comments are messages of respect, of admiration, of love for a man who's been so honest about his journey. Because here's the truth. Jean-Claude Van Damme at 64 is more heroic than he ever was in any movie. Think about it. In the movies, he always won. He always defeated the bad guy. He always saved the day. The hero never really struggles, not in a way that feels real. But in real life, Jean-Claude lost. He lost a lot. He lost money, marriages, years of his life, his health, his reputation. And then he fought back, not with his fists, but with honesty and hard work and determination. He saved himself. And that's a better story than any action movie could ever tell. When you see Jean-Claude Van Damme now, yes, you see an older man. You see someone whose body has been through wars, both literal on movie sets and figurative in his personal life. You see scars and wrinkles and gray hair. But if you look deeper, you see something beautiful. You see resilience. You see redemption. You see proof that human beings are capable of incredible change, no matter how far they've fallen. He's not trying to be young again. He's not denying his age or his struggles. He's just being real. And in a world where celebrities usually hide behind filters and lies and carefully crafted images, that realness is refreshing. It's inspiring. It's exactly what we need to see. Because if Jean-Claude Van Damme can survive everything he went through and come out the other side as a better person, then maybe we can too. Maybe our struggles don't have to define us. Maybe our worst moments don't have to be our final moments. The lesson here isn't about martial arts or action movies or physical strength. The lesson is about mental and emotional strength. It's about admitting when you need help. It's about forgiving yourself for your mistakes while still taking responsibility for them. It's about showing up for people you love, even when you've let them down before. It's about understanding that life is long and complicated, and nobody gets through it perfectly. Jean-Claude Van Damme at 64 is a reminder that our heroes are human. They make mistakes. They struggle. They fail. But they can also grow and change and become better versions of themselves. And maybe that's more valuable than any perfect image could ever be. Maybe seeing someone be imperfect and honest and still keep fighting is exactly the kind of hero we need in today's world. So yes, when you see Jean-Claude Van Damme now, you might feel sad about how time affects us all. You might feel nostalgic for those old action movies when he seemed invincible. But I hope you also feel something else. I hope you feel inspired. I hope you feel grateful that he survived. I hope you feel proud of him for turning his life around. And I hope you remember that it's never too late to change your story, no matter who you are or what you've been through. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think differently about Jean-Claude Van Damme or about your own struggles, then do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message today. Maybe you know someone who's struggling with addiction, or someone who feels like they've made too many mistakes to come back from, or someone who just needs to be reminded that change is possible. Send them this video. Let them see that even action heroes fall down, but what matters is getting back up. And of course, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because we're going to keep bringing you stories that matter, stories that inspire, stories that remind us all that being human is beautiful even when it's messy. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, your story isn't over yet. Keep fighting, keep growing, keep being real, just like Jean-Claude.